Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to Necromunda Hired Guns, your ultimate guide to the gritty Underhive of Games Workshop's Necromunda. In this series we dive deep into the fascinating world of hanger-ons, brutes, and hired guns. So whether you're a seasoned gang leader or just stepping into the dark quarters of Hive Primus for the very first time, our in-depth analysis will help you to master these valuable allies and assets. And on today's episode we're going to be talking about the Ogryns, specifically 3 types of Ogryn brutes that you can recruit to your gangs. We're talking about the Jotunn H-grade Servitor Ogryn. We're also talking about the Mutated Ogryn as well as the Awakened Ogryn. We'll be talking about their characteristics, their equipment, their skills, their special rules, and give you our concluding thoughts about each of these brutes and how best to use them in your gangs. And because this video will be a little bit more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below so that we can click and navigate to the part of the video that interests you the most. So that being said, let's delve into the fascinating world of Ogryns, and we'll start off first with the Jotunn H-grade Servitor Ogryn. Alright, let's talk about the Jotunn H-grade Servitor Ogryn, the bad boy himself. He costs 210 credits as base, and for Goliath gangs I actually get a slight bit of a discount at 180 credits as well. This is a common Ogryn that can be recruited by almost any single gang that's a law-abiding gang in your campaigns on Necromunda. So let's go ahead and talk about its characteristics real quick. So first of all, we have a movement characteristic of 5, which is quite average, but we have a 4+ weapon skill, a 5+ ballistic skill, and here's where we really shine. We got 5 strength, 5 toughness, 3 wounds, a 4+ for initiative, 2 attacks, 7 leadership, 6 cool, 8 willpower, as well as 9 intelligence. Now the key feature of these characteristics, of course, comes down to its close combat characteristics, because that's exactly what Ogryns are designed to do. They're meant to just kind of rush into the enemy and just smash face with their high strength and toughness. With that 4 weapon skill, it is quite average, but it's leveraging that lower weapon skill for the higher strength and toughness. You're talking about a attacker that's got strength 5 as well as toughness 5, and that's just before we start counting bonuses for weapons. It's also got 3 strength, so it's also 3 wounds, so it's very survivable, and it also has 2 attacks base. And we're going to talk about exactly how we can pump out those attacks with the equipment that this thing actually contains. Now, speaking of its equipment, it does come with automatically the pair of augmatic fists, which means that if you charge into close combat using the paired trait on these paired augmatic fists, that means you get 4 attacks when doing reacting attacks or 6 attacks on the charge. And when you strike with these weapons, you're striking at strength 6 with -1 AP, causing 2 damage every single time you're doing that. And it comes back with a knockback trait as well, which is also quite impressive. Can add additional damage if you manage to roll very well. And plus, when combined with that paired trait, you get multiple attacks on the charge with this typical type of Ogryn, which is quite deadly. Now you could of course upgrade this Ogryn with an arc welder for additional 70 credits. What you're doing in this situation is you're trading the additional attacks that you get from the paired trait from having these paired automatic fists, but you're going with something that actually hits way harder. To give you guys an example of that arc welder for that 70 credits, you're striking at strength 7 with -3 AP with 3 damage as well as blaze. So there are some unique benefits to taking the arc welder over the augmatic fists. In my opinion, if you're taking on more softer targets in your campaign, so mainly like just fighters on foot for the most part, then paired automatic fists are perfectly fine. However, if you are fighting things with higher toughness, like other brutes for example, or potentially vehicles, then the arc welder probably the way you want to go. Now, in case you want a shooting attack for this Ogryn, you can take a storm welder for 75 credits. It could be potentially devastating, but the 5+ ballistic skill though, as well as the reckless trait, it could be kind of dangerous, especially if you fail ammo roll with the unstable trait. You could take your Ogryn out. However, though, it is a tactical decision because you do strike at 4+ with the ballistic skill if you're in the short range of the storm welder, and storm welders can be potentially very devastating if your rolls go off well, so it's pretty much up to your player choice. If you're more of a gambler, the storm welder could be a lot of fun on Ogryn as well. The only downside, of course, is besides the problems of a storm welder weapon, you lose those additional attacks by trading out one of your augmatic fists for that weapon instead. Now, an interesting choice you could take for your equipment, of course, is a spudjacker, and it actually subtracts 20 credits from your score, because what ends up happening is that you're trading one of your augmatic fists for that weapon as well. In my opinion, the only reason why you're taking the Spudjacker is because you're trying to get this Ogryn at a lesser cost, and that's the only reason why you take it. The Spudjacker doesn't really provide much in terms of additional benefits. You're pretty much just better off just sticking with the paired augmatic fists. And of course, lastly, you can purchase furnace plates for your Ogryn for 15 credits. And in my opinion, you should take it just because it's the only armor that you have available for your Ogryn in the first place. Now, when it comes to its skills, it automatically comes with a headbutt skill, which is a great one because you get a free strength 7, 2 damage melee attack. So imagine just headbutting a vehicle, for example. You can cause a lot of damage that way, and it's an automatic free attack that you get when charging in close combat. So why wouldn't you want to give yourself a high strength, high damage melee attack? Now let's talk about his special rules real quick. So it does have the loyal special rule, which means you get +2 against rolls for close combat attacks in case you give kind of assists with this guy, so that part is quite nice. The only downside, of course, for an Ogryn like this, they do have the slow-witted special rule, which means they cannot be included as part of group activation. So these guys will have to act on their own, so that part is kind of sad about that. Now for my concluding price on this one, the stock price of 225 credits if you're just like a normal gang who's not a Goliath gang, if you decide to take furnace plates, is perfectly fine. I mean, you can cause a lot of damage with that. Just the number of attacks alone that you get from those paradigmatic fists makes it very worth it. Now, the arc welder could be good as well, but I only recommend this, for example, if you're either playing in a couple of types of campaign. If you're playing in Ash Waste campaigns where there's vehicles, or in the Underhive campaign, for example, arc welder could be quite good for the vehicles in both those campaign settings. Not to mention the blaze trait really help with a lot of visibility issues that you're running into the Underhive as well, or the Mantis Session, just because you have a lot more credits to work with. And plus vehicles could also be included in that as well. It's only 5 credits cheaper though than an actual ambot, so you could get an ambot instead if you just want to spend a little bit more credits on it. However, what you're leveraging with the Ogryn Servitor is the number of attacks you get in close combat. You can dish out a lot more punishment and attacks with a Ogryn Servitor than you can with an ambot. So that's the real reason why you're taking one, is because you want those higher number of attacks in close combat. So depending upon your player choice and the way you like to do things with your gang and the way you like to play your campaigns, the Ogryn Servitor could actually be a really good choice for you if you don't want to take an ambot. Alright, up next is the Mutated Ogryn, which is one of your 2 options in the Outlaw gang if you want to take an Ogryn. It costs 210 credits. So let's talk about its characteristics real quick. It's got a 5-inch wind allowance, the exact same as the Jotunn Servitor. It's got 3+ weapon skill, so a little bit better weapon skill there. 5+ ballistic skill. It's got 5 strength, 5 toughness, 3 wounds, 4 initiative, 3 attacks, 7 leadership, 6 cool, 8 willpower, as well as 9 intelligence. So once again, it's got a really good base of characteristics. They actually have one better weapon skill than the Law-Binding Ogryn as well, with the same high strength, high toughness, and high wound count, as well as a larger number of attacks with 3 attacks instead of 2. So the Mutated Ogryn for 210 credits is a little bit of a steal already because it gets a lot more attacks than its Jotunn Servitor counterpart. However, there is a trade-off, and that trade-off mainly comes in the type of equipment that it comes with and what you can purchase for it. And the trade-off really comes to its base weapons. It doesn't have paired augmented fists, it just has open fist by itself. Now, the open fists, of course, are nothing to laugh at. You're still strengthening that strength 5 with -1 AP with 1 damage as well as knockback, so it is quite good. However, it's nowhere near the ability of what a paired set of augmented fists will do. However, though, there's some other options you can take on your Mutated Ogryn that you cannot take on the Servitor Ogryn. And one of those, of course, is the Power Maul. For additional 30 credits, you can take a Power Maul. That Power Maul will allow you to actually strike at strength 7 with -1 AP and 1 damage, and you also have the power trait, which means it can't be parried unless, of course, your opponent has a powered weapon of some sort with a melee trait attached to it. So it has the exact same armor penetration as well as damage as its open fist, but you strike at strength 7, which is really good to use against hard targets like other enemy brutes, high armored targets, or vehicles for that matter. So that's kind of a way to look at it. Now, an interesting one that you can take for additional 20 credits is that you can take horrific appendages, which is actually one of the reasons why you want to take a Mutated Ogryn. Now, with your horrific appendages, you'll be striking at strength 5 with -1 AP, but now you got 2 damage, and you also get the pulverize as well as redding traits. For the pulverize trait, if you roll a d6 that beats your target's toughness, or if you roll a natural 6, you can change one of the injury dice that you roll for your target from 1 flesh wound to a serious injury, which is a really great ability to have, because if you charge into close combat, you change that flesh wound to a serious injury roll, you can take that opponent out with a coup de grace and get yourself some additional credits and take that fighter out of action, which is really nice as well. And then you get this if you charge into close combat, which with the Mutated Ogryn you should always be doing. The other one you also get to is rending, which means if you roll a 6 on a wound roll, you get 1 additional damage. It makes it damage 3, which would be quite nice as well, or cause extra damage dice on an enemy vehicle if you're using that as well. And then lastly, the last upgrade you can get for this guy is for an additional 15 credits you can take furnace plates, which I should recommend you do because it's the only armor that this brute can take. Now, continuing on the special rules for the Mutated Ogryn, you do have Murderous Brute, which is actually an additional roll, which means that you actually can either choose from the Ferocity or the Savagery skill sets, and you basically roll a random d6 to figure out which one of these you can get. Now, it doesn't cost you additional experience points to do this, and it is kind of random. However, there are a couple of good skills in both the Ferocity as well as the Savagery skill tree that you could actually use. Depending on what your, of course, preferred method of playing, of course, it depends on what skill would be the most valuable to you. However, for me, the big standouts for me are from the ferocity skill tree is definitely Nerves of Steel. And the reason why is because you're going to get shot at quite a bit as a Mutated Ogryn, so because you want to be able to escape pinning so that we can charge in close combat. And with a 6+ cool, that is very doable for you, so getting that Nerves of Steel will be quite good as well. Also, Killing Blow is not bad because you can double the strength as well as the damage of your single close combat attack. And with weapon skill 3, you're going to be triggering that quite a bit, so doing things against enemy vehicles, for example, could be a ton of fun for you if you manage to master that, get that high risk, high reward close combat attack off. And you also have the slow-witted special rule as well, so it cannot be part of a group activation, so that part is kind of sad about that. Now when it comes to its skills, of course, it automatically comes with the True Grit skill, and what that means is that you roll 1 less injury die every single time you have to roll injury die for your fighter, or if it's only a 1 damage attack, you get to roll 2 injury dice and you get to pick which one you want. So that's something you might want to take into consideration. For skill development, it can take Brawn as a primary skill with combat as well as ferocity as secondary skills, and in my opinion, for 275 credits, fully kitted out, the Mutated Ogryn is actually much more capable than the Ogryn Servitor in my opinion, just because it gets that additional ferocity or savagery skill, which is kind of nice, plus the weapon options you can get for this guy could also be quite devastating as well. Not to mention, it's only one of the few outlaw brutes that outlaw gangs can take, so if you're an outlaw gang, this is one of the better options for you to take, especially if you're a Chaos Corrupted gang, because narratively speaking, this thing just kind of fits into the overall narrative of your gang. And that's going to be the Ogryn Mutant. So now that we're talking about that guy, let's talk about the very last one on this list, which is the Awakened Ogryn. So the Awakened Ogryn costs 220 credits as one of the last of the 2 Ogryns that outlaw gangs are able to take for their brute choice for themselves. You can find the rules for this actually from the Lost Charter Necromunda Apocrypha supplement that came out on the Warhammer community and page, and that's actually where this actually came from. It's a psychically awakened Ogryn, so imagine Ogryn with psychic powers. So let's talk about its characteristics real quick. So it does have a 5 instrument allowance, 4+ weapon skill, 5+ ballista skill, 5 strength and toughness, 3 wounds, 4 initiative, 2 attacks, has 7 leadership, 6 cool, 8 willpower, as well as 9 intelligence. So the exact same characteristics as a normal Ogryn. Now, while the close combat attack characteristics of 4+ weapon skill, 5 strength, 5 toughness, 3 wounds, and 2 attacks is quite nice, the downside of an Awakened Ogryn is that god-awful willpower score. You have an 8+ for willpower, which means you only have a 41% chance of triggering psychic abilities, which is kind of a sad handicap to have for this character, because the only reason why you would want to take an Awakened Ogryn over a Mutated Ogryn or even a Jotunn Servitor Ogryn is because you want to get those psychic abilities off. So it's kind of like a wrench in the works, because it kind of throws things out of balance because of that lower willpower score. So that part is quite sad. However, unlike the Mutated Ogryn, though, it does come with twin paired automatic fists stock, which is great. So you get 4 attacks of that when reacting, or 6 attacks on the charge. We're still striking at strength 6, -1 AP, 2 damage with the knockback as well as the paired weapons traits. So that is kind of the balance there, because it is kind of like a normal Ogryn in that sense. So that part is quite nice. Once again, you can do a couple options for this guy. You can get a Spudjacker for -20 credits to make him even cheaper. I wouldn't recommend doing this, but if you're short on credits, of course, you could always take a Spudjacker. And you can also take Furnace Plates as well for 15 credits, which you should take because it's the only option on this guy. But unlike other Ogryns, with this one, you get psychic powers, and for additional 30 credits, you can get another weird power as well. However, though, it's not that great of a choice, and the reason why is because you got that god-awful 8+ willpower score. You're only going to trigger your abilities off 41% of the time, and with this characteristic the thing has, it's meant for close combat, not necessarily for triggering psychic abilities too much. Now let's talk about his special rules real quick. So it does have the loyal special rule that we mentioned earlier with the law-abiding Ogryn brute, so that one still applies to that. It also has slow-witted, just like its other 2 counterparts as well. However, though, it does have the awakened special rule, which means you can spend 6 experience points for random weird power. However, though, it's not just any weird power you can take. It's a very specific list of weird powers you can take, which we'll talk about on the next page. Or you could actually spend 9 experience points to actually pick the weird power that you want for your Ogryn. You also got the non-sanctioned Psyker special rule, which means if your opponent manages to take this guy to action, they earn D3 times 10 credits, so a bonus for your enemies there. And of course, we got the Outlaw special rule, which means that this can only be taken by outlaw gangs. Once again, it does have the Headbutt skill, which means you get a free Strength 7 2 damage melee attack, which is always a fun thing to have because having additional attacks in close combat is always the way to go. It also has Brawn as a primary skill, as well as Ferocity as a secondary skill, or as a primary skill you can take other additional weird powers. Now, let's talk about the weird powers real quick that you get from this one. So, you have these 6 powers you can choose from if you went raw, rules as written. And these weird powers are not that great. You got Iron Arm, which gives you a 5-up ward save in close combat. You got Body of Flame, which is potentially good. Weapon Jinx is also quite good as well, causing your enemy to take a weapon reload. And Overcharge. Now, let's talk about Overcharge real quick. Like I said, someone at GW must have been huffing glue when they made these rules, because Overcharge only applies to shooting attacks, and this guy does not have any shooting attacks. It's not like you can use this power on somebody else who's got shooting attacks. They can only use their own shooting attacks, which they don't have. So why include it, right? So that's a problem with that power. You got Crush, which is quite good, as well as Terrify, which is also kind of interesting as well. But unfortunately, your powers are not all that great, so that's the problem with taking an Awakened Ogryn. It could be potentially good if your arbitrator will allow you to choose other psychic disciplines. So, like, if you wanted to use the psychic disciplines from the Book of the Outcast, for example, or if, like, you're playing a Mouse Drain Allegiance gang and you want to take the Mouse Drain powers, that part was quite good. However, though, but the ways the rules of these were written, though, it looks like you can only choose from these 6 powers. Now, if your arbitrator is gracious enough to allow you to do that, then by all means, this makes things a little bit different with this brute. But if your arbitrator says no, well, you know, it kind of limits the validity of this guy. And that's the problem with this one. This thing costs anywhere between 215 to 235 credits, fully kitted out, depending on which options you choose, decide whether you do the Spudjacker or not. And it is potentially the cheapest of the 3 Ogryns that you can choose from, but you kind of lose out with the psychic powers. The psychic powers are not that great. The willpower characteristic is not that great as well. And like I said, unless you can choose other psychic disciplines for this or find some way to reduce that willpower cost, I say give this guy a hard pass. So there you guys have it. That is our hot take on the 3 different Ogryn brutes that are available to gangs in Necromunda. Depending upon your playstyle and your gang progress is what I would basically use to dictate whether you want to go with these specific brutes or not. Some of the miniatures are quite cool, especially for the Mutated Ogryn, as well as the Ogryn Servitor as well. There's nothing for the Awakened Ogryn, but you could easily just kit bash your own if you wanted to, or use a proxy or a 3D printed miniature. I mean, that'd be one way to do it as well. And even though I gave you my viewpoints about these brutes and how to use them in their gang, at the end of the day, it's still kind of depends on just your personal preference. I mean, I don't care for the Awakened Ogryn, but if you think that's the coolest thing on earth and you want to play it, then by all means, play it. Do whatever is fun for you. Do whatever matches your play style and the way you like to play and organize your gang. Just look at my suggestions as simply that. They're just suggestions. And you could do whatever you want and still have a lot of fun. After all, if you want to do the, you know, it'd be kind of cool for you to make like an Ogryn, like an Awakened Ogryn to use it as an outcast leader, for example. That could be something fun for you as well. So it just kind of depends on how you want to run things and how you like to play your game of Necromunda, and by all means do whatever's fun for you, because the only rule that you should really follow when playing Necromunda with creating your gangs and such is the rule of cool. Do whatever is fun for you in that situation. Now, of course, if you guys have any other suggestions of some other brutes or some other hanger-ons you guys like to see, please put them down in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your guys' comments and your feedback on this. And that's good for this video, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. I am Commander Chiefskate. I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out and stay classy.